We are rolling, okay. So my name's Chris Henry. I was born in the north of England in a lovely little village called Whalley, and that is in the area of the Ribble Valley. My parents, Sheila and Thomas, were from East Lancashire, Accrington and Oswaldtwistle. I have one brother and I had three sisters. Unfortunately, one of my sisters passed away when she was 19. She suffered from something called asthma. Back in the 70s, the medication wasn't great back then, and unfortunately she passed away at our house, which was a very traumatic experience, losing somebody so close like your 19-year-old sister. That was an unbelievable experience. I think one experience, that can actually really negatively affect you, or you can use it also as energy and strength going forward. So yeah, that was back in Whalley, and then I spent a lot of time growing up in a town called Accrington, where I went to junior school and to high school. And one of the things that I realised back then was that I was pretty good at sports, particularly sports like football, where I represented the school, the town, the county of Lancashire, and later went on to become an apprentice football player at Blackburn Rovers Football Club, professional club, and also realising I was pretty good at other things like tennis and also snooker. You've probably seen that I'm heavily involved in the professional world of snooker. So yeah, I had great parents, very down-to-earth people who treated their kids very, very well. And I think that's very fortunate as a young child to get that kind of input from your parents. And also great siblings as well. My brother and sisters were fantastic in terms of helping to raise me in a very positive way, because it's important to have the right kind of people around you when you're young, because it has a very big influence on what kind of person you're going to be as you grow up. So that was fantastic. Lots and lots of friends in Accrington, Whalley, Lancashire, north of England, and that's about half an hour sort of north of Manchester. If you know where Manchester is, we have a very strong local dialect, Lancashire dialect, and if I was to speak that dialect now, you'd probably have a bit of trouble understanding what I was saying. I'm trying to speak in a language that most people can understand in different countries as well. Went to a junior school, in fact a preschool and nursery school, De Lacy House, and then to St Oswald's, and then onto high school, all in the same area of Accrington. Also in Accrington there was a snooker club called the Elite Snooker Club, a very popular club, and it was a club that one of the professional snooker players came to practice. Alex Higgins came over from Northern Ireland, and I was fortunate enough in the 70s when I was young. I was born in 1965, November, which, yes, makes me 60 years of age, and I've been fortunate to be able to do so many different things in my life. I chose not to go down the route of choosing one profession and sticking to one profession. I think the reason for that was because I just enjoyed too many other things. I had too many other interests. I like playing the piano. I like to play different sports. I like to read. I like to travel. And do different things. I don't like to be stuck sort of in one area all the time. So like I said, yeah, I got into sport in a big way in different areas. And then as I got older, sort of into my teens, I started to get involved and get interested in things like psychology. Started to read some books about psychology and that kind of stuff, personal development, listening to people like Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Dennis Waitley, all these kind of personal development coaches. Fantastic information to learn, and when you use that kind of information, it can transform your life if you use it in the right way, and you can learn about things and sort of increase your learning curve as you go through life. And then what happened was I met a guy when I was 16. I was playing in a snooker tournament in Blackpool. Blackpool is a little village on the coast, the west coast of England, and there was a big tournament at the Commonwealth Sporting Club. And as I was playing the final there, my mother was sat down next to a guy called Frank Callen, and Frank was the coach of the 6 times world champion Steve Davis, and then became coach to Stephen Hendry in the 90s, who became 7 times world champion. And Frank said to my mother he could see a lot of potential in me and me as a snooker player. So what happened there was I started to take lessons from Frank as a snooker player, and I learned a lot of his technical skills and a lot of his technical advice on how to play the game at a very high level, and spent probably about 17 years with Frank over that period of time, learning all of the major things about how to play snooker at a high level. And in fact, what happened was it got to a point where Frank didn't want to travel to certain countries, so he'd send me to places like Qatar, for example, which was a phenomenal experience to work with the royal family in Doha, the Al Thani family, meet those kinds of people. And it's been a fascinating journey, because what happened was in the 90s, as people started to see me coaching, and I went away from playing. I was a good player, a very good player. In fact, I became a professional in the early 90s as a professional snooker player. But in the late 80s, something happened that was interesting. I played in a final live on television in Holland, and that was an experience where something happened to me, becoming very, very nervous. I was in a situation where I'm live on TV. I felt very nervous. I couldn't really perform at my best in the first few frames. I went to the toilet and literally went crazy. I was so frustrated and angry, not realising I was changing my state. And I was able to go back out and compete back in the final and win the final 5-4 live on television, which was phenomenal. Did an interview, went to Antwerp, did some coaching, and a businessman offered me a contract. I was 23, 24 at that point, and he offered me a contract to go and live in Bruges, in Belgium, which I'd never heard of. And he took me to Bruges to have a look around, and I fell in love with the place immediately. It's such a beautiful old medieval town, and he had a house available for me to live in with a salary and a car in 1989, and that's when I had this 12-month period in Bruges. Unfortunately, at the end of that year, my mother was sick and unfortunately passed away, and I had to go back to England for a couple of years, 1990, 91, and into 92, spending time with my dad. Obviously, he was really upset about the whole situation, well, devastated in fact. So I felt like I had to spend some time with him in those really sad times. And then, of course, as you go through time, as you know, that time does make things a little bit easier to deal with, especially when you lose somebody very close in your family. It can be a real sort of knife in the heart moment where it's almost like the end of the world sort of feeling. But you've always got to remember that everything passes. I think you've got to just remember that. Whatever happens, everything passes. And so you've just always got to remember that good times are going to come if you're in bad times, if you like. That's a big lesson that I learned through those experiences. And then I was fortunate then to coach my first professional snooker player, Jimmy White, in the late 90s, which was a phenomenal experience for a couple of years. And then I went on to coach a guy called Peter Ebdon, who achieved his major goal, beating Stephen Hendry in the final of the World Championship. So I was now sort of listed as a world champion coach, which was very nice. And since then, I've sort of gone on to move into working with many, many top professional snooker players, including Shaun Murphy, Mark Selby, Neil Robertson, Mark Allen, done bits and bats with many, many different players, if you like, invented a few products and training aids and brought all of that sort of stuff into the equation. I'm now working with 8 professional snooker players, travelling around the world, just come back from Hong Kong, which was a fantastic city. And also back in 2015, I was doing a corporate seminar training a company on the performance aspects of becoming better in terms of what you're trying to achieve, a company called The First Group in Dubai. And I was introduced to professional golf back then, in terms of being inside, behind the ropes, if you like, and meeting a very high-profile manager who I sat down with and explained a little bit about this process that I've sort of brought to the psychology world, if you like, something called neural rewiring, which is a way of reprogramming your subconscious to create higher performance thermostats, to create a better self-belief system, so that now a person that's attempting to achieve something starts to believe it's possible for them before they actually attempt to do it. And I think that's a real key to being very confident in those big situations. And so I explained this process to the manager of Rafa Cabrera Bello, and he mentioned to me that Rafa might be interested in doing some work. This was in February of 2015, and by June I got the phone call. Rafa was struggling a little bit with his mentality, his mind, losing sort of self-confidence. And could I go down to the Golf National in Paris to work with Rafa at the French Open, which I did. We spent four days together. He achieved the goal he had to achieve there to get into the Open Championship in Scotland. He got in the top 5 in that tournament. And our sort of relationship then blossomed into a 3-4 year relationship where we had some unbelievable experiences. We went to the Ryder Cup together because Rafa got into the top rankings in the DP World Tour, So we got selected for the Ryder Cup, and I went to Hazeltine to coach Rafa in 2016 at the Ryder Cup. Also went to the Augusta Masters, which was incredible, to coach Rafa. Also the Open Championship at St Andrews, the home of golf. And I've had all those experiences. And within 18 months of working with Rafa from 15, he actually went on to win a huge tournament, the Rolex Series Scottish Open, which was fantastic. He managed to get over the line. He managed to follow through in a situation that he'd been struggling with. And from that success, then lots of other golf players approached me to work with them. Lee Westwood, Thomas Peters, Joost Luiten, Gavin Green, Marcel Siem, Darren Clark, the Ryder Cup captain. And it's been a phenomenal experience. So that's something that I really treasure, that I've been able to travel the world, going to America, working with Peter Uihlein on the US PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and Gavin Green on the Asia Tour. So that's been excellent in terms of being able to share my knowledge and help people to perform at a higher level. And now, in 2021, became the only coach that's ever coached 2 players in the same World Professional Final. So can you imagine what an experience that was? I'm coaching Shaun Murphy. I'm in his changing room in the final. I'm coaching Mark Selby.
You know, I owe a big thank you to Chris Henry. As I said in my interviews before, I know I've won tournaments before without Chris, but the last 18 months I was sort of doubting myself. I worked with him before the World Championships, seen a lot of positives and a lot of improvements there, and first tournament of the season, come out on top. So, yeah, a big thank you to Chris as well.
I'm in his changing room in the final, and these 2 guys are playing the final of the World Championship, and I've got to coach both of them and be as neutral as possible, not siding with either one of them. But it was an up and down experience, really, because you know you're going to have a winner of the World Championship, but also you know you're going to have the loser as well. So you have to deal with both of those things. And now where I'm at in terms of my career in coaching, we're now looking to expand all around the world and bring the message of something called neural rewiring to the masses now, because this is now something I've been using with top elite sports people and corporate people. We've seen the results of all the players we've worked with have all gone on to win when they've had trouble winning before, achieving a higher level of performance, and literally using something called neuroplasticity, which is neuroscience, to change the subconscious brain, to affect people's belief systems, to increase people's performance thermostats, to be able to follow through and perform at their highest levels. And so that's something I'm going to be bringing out more and more. You'll be able to see a lot of this information on my YouTube channel, Chris Henry Coaching. We're going to be doing some seminars as well in different countries, in Europe, in the UK. So look out for some of those as well. And, you know, who knows, maybe we meet one day and I'll be able to share this neuroscience information with you to help you achieve something even higher than you've already achieved, which would be fantastic.